Alright, motherfuckers, this is episode 2 of the podcast that probably no one's listening to right now, but hopefully in 3 or 4 or 5 years' time, whenever we fucking exit this business, a lot of people are listening and a lot of people have gotten a lot of value from it. So, episode 2. So I want to explain a little bit more about what I'm doing just now. Both in terms of my career and where I'm going with it. As with any episode, we start off with what coffee we had today. So, as I'm currently working in a coffee shop as a cafe manager in Melbourne. So today I got up and I made some of that cold brew. Which more on it later, but right now I'm experimenting with ginger, raw cacao and L-theanine as a little mix. So I had that as soon as I got up on my way to work at 6:30 a.m. And when I got to work, I had a long black, and our long blacks at our work, we have different roasts on each day. So I can't quite remember where it was from. I'm trying to rack my brain, but I can't remember where it's from. I think, yeah, it was a Honduras, so it was called San Vicente from Honduras, and it was pretty tasty, pretty fruity, a little bit different from the average coffee. And then a little bit later on, I had what's called a magic. So in Melbourne, they have their own. They're very, very particular about their coffee, and they have a special coffee they call the Magic Melbourne, which is a double estretto with flat white milk. And it's really fucking good. Not a person who likes milky coffees, but if that's anything to go by, it's probably a good introduction for people that swear by black coffee. So yeah, I'm just going to say a little bit about the job I'm working just now, and how I believe being in this role will help me progress and succeed with that, and building it into something that creates this massive community and demonstrates and builds a lot of value in a lot of people's lives. So I got the job at Virtue in Melbourne by walking into a coffee shop and asking if they wanted staff. It was literally that easy. I walked in and I said, "Are you looking for any staff?" And he said, "Do you know how to work in a coffee shop?" And I said, "No, not really, but I'm willing to learn." Blah, blah, blah. Got the job. Through that, I showed my enthusiasm for the coffee industry and learning more about it. And I'd done previous marketing for a specialist coffee brand in Glasgow, so that helped me out massively. And I ended up speaking to the operations manager that day, who introduced me to the owner, who I now have good contact with, and I hope to get on a future episode of this. And they basically, over the next couple of weeks, began to trust me, and began to see my aspirations for my role within the company and why I want to build it, and why I want to help them grow as well. With that, the role does two things. The role progresses my knowledge and experience and everything else within the coffee industry. It also allows me to provide value to a growing company, and everything that I learn from here can be applied to that. So that is going to be a cold brew brand, and it's going to be centered around focus, and it has its own image, its own ideas, its own version of marketing. It even has a different business model, but you can draw parallels with the marketing. So I'll be moving into a marketing role with Virtue, and with that, there's a lot of different things that I can try in terms of, are we trying an email marketing campaign this week? Are we using TikTok the next week? Are we doing a newsletter? What's the return on that? What makes a sticky sales process? What makes a really clean, efficient sales process? What's the return on investment from different marketing campaigns? And all of that can be used as good knowledge for that. Also, just having more experience within the coffee industry is great. Because it means I can speak from experience when building this brand, when growing it. If anyone asks any questions about the coffee, where it came from, what process, what farming process was used, was it an anaerobic, was it a natural or washed coffee, what region was it from, why does it taste like that? These are questions I can answer, and I truly believe that people should be, or the people behind the brand should be as knowledgeable as anyone. Like if you look at Elon Musk, for example, he's known for knowing everything about his rockets at SpaceX or the cars at Tesla. He is there every second of the day, overlooking that process to make sure he knows and to make sure he's contributing directly, which I think's a beautiful, wonderful thing. So yeah, I think it's a symbiotic process, me working in this job and also building this, that. Obviously time dedicated to one is less time dedicated to another, but it never means that there's less time in a day for actually building this, that. Moving on to that, onto building this, that itself, there's some potential legality issues. So I'm in Melbourne in Australia on a working holiday visa just now, and the chances of that, or the chances of me being allowed to start a business in Australia are pretty slim. Working holiday visas, by the looks of the information online, don't look as if they allow you to start a business very easily. So what I've done is I've contacted the Melbourne government startup assistance people, and I actually had a phone conversation with one of the concierges there today. I voiced my concerns to them, and their job is literally to look into it for me. So I'm utilising the Melbourne government to potentially help me. So the dream is to set it up here, to have this, that, start in the place where it's essentially the epitome of coffee in the world is in Melbourne right now. So it's the best place to see where, if something like this will actually work, which I really believe it will, because I really believe in the idea behind it. So I'll be hearing back from them within the next few days on whether it's possible and whether I can actually receive funding to do this. But if so, it's full steam ahead. It's get a pitch deck made, get some business plans wrote out, get the core product made and let people try it, and get some fucking funding and get this off the ground. Other things that I had a look at this week is obviously the product has to be pasteurised. That ensures its shelf life, and make sure no one's getting fucking botulism from a coffee, because that's the last thing you want to do is kill your customers. Nestle. So yeah, I looked into that, and you can use high heat pasteurization, which is where you heat it to 72 degrees for at least 15 seconds, and that pasteurizes it of any bacteria, and then you can heat seal it into a bottle or can. It looks more like I will be using bottles initially as an MVP, so my minimum viable product, and then after that I'll be shifting into using cans, because that's ideally what I want the product to be thinking. And it has to be slim, it has to be able to slip in your bag, it has to be taken with you anywhere, up top of a mountain, in a fucking classroom, while you're doing a fucking Rubik's Cube competition, while you're cycling, while you're having a productive morning, starting your new side project. That's where it has to be. So I think the can's the best vehicle for that. Yeah, so potentially starting the business in Melbourne, but if not, I think the plan would be to stay here for another 6 to 9 months, ride it out, and then take it back to the UK. Can possibly have, or actually I will have a pitch deck made up and send relative documents to people within the UK, and I'm yet to pick a location as to where I'd go, but looking somewhere like Bristol. So Bristol's a very youthful university town down in England. It's got close links to a lot of basically a large population of the UK, because it's close to London and Manchester and so on and so on and so on, and you're not far from most of Europe as well. So it's a really good launching pad, and the startup assistance in the UK, or at least Scotland, has been great, so I'm hoping the UK is the same. So yeah, that's something to think about, but we'll see. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say on the developments for this just now. Right now we are testing out different ratios of the ginger, cacao, and L-theanine. I tried it this morning, up at 6 a.m. for work. So I had some while I was catching my bus, and I did find that I wasn't as wired or as anxious as I was, say, for example, last week when I had a double espresso first thing in the morning. I had this with the 200 milligrams of L-theanine, and I found that I had a sort of relaxed focus that maybe wasn't as much of a buzz. But I think that could be a good thing, that it still woke me up, but I didn't have that anxious or that sick feeling in my stomach that I sometimes do with coffee in the morning if I have it too early. So yeah, it's a really good sign that the nootropic side of it is actually working. And the taste was really good. I love the ginger, so I'm experimenting with different ratios of ginger to coffee to water right now to find out what works best. Yeah, so I'll move on to the last part of what we do in this podcast. Again, super short for just now. So the last part of each podcast, when I'm talking with guests or when I'm talking about myself, I want to talk about character. And for some people, it can be the self-development processes they've introduced into their life within the last year, things that are been standard for a while, how they view self-development. So it's going to be an engaging conversation with every person because everyone has a different view on how that works for them. It's a very subjective experience. But for me, I want to talk about sobriety from alcohol and why I do it. So for me, sobriety from alcohol is something I feel as if it's entirely inevitable in my life. Since I was a very, very young man, even a child, the only thing that I've ever wanted is success in business and be able to use that success in business to do or to offer myself more freedom, honestly, to be able to travel the world, to be able to see things, to be able to do things that not everyone's able to do on a 9-to-5 job, and also support the people around me. One of the things I want to do most is be able to give a bunch of money back to my mum and dad so they can enjoy the last 20, 30, 40 years of their life, so they have that greatest experience. They've spent 23 years raising me and supporting me, and the least I can do is do the same back to them. So that's one of the things. The freedom it offers me. I want to go learn Spanish or live in a little town down in Italy and learn how to fucking cook pasta and go snowboarding in the Alps and travel down in Mexico and learn how to make fucking some sort of taco that's incredibly delicious. Like, I want all of the experiences in life that I can possibly get, and I think business success for me is the route to that. I've never been a musically talented person. I don't think I'll ever be a film director. I think the thing that I show most natural aptitude in is understanding human psychology and growing a business. So this is where this has started from. So yeah, the relation of that to sobriety is that I spent a lot of my teens, probably 14 to 21 at least, getting drunk and fucked up and taking a lot of drugs every weekend. And after a while, it really, really started to get old. I started to notice that those weekends or the day after drinking alcohol, I was just doing nothing. I was sitting around being a lazy cunt, not doing a single thing that was progressing me towards who I wanted to be. And when I started journaling and really reflected upon what was most important to me, it was making an impact with my time on this earth and doing things that I could be incredibly proud of, like achieving success in business and my personal life and my making progress spiritually for myself. All of the above, these long-term goals were far more important than this short-term hedonistic pleasure. So I decided to do a year sober in 2020, just examine my relationship with alcohol and decide what it was for me and why I drank it. And that year really taught me a lot of things. It showed me that alcohol wasn't a necessity for me to be happy. It really wasn't. In that year off, we started a business with friends, which ultimately failed, but that's That's a conversation for a future episode with my friend Binning, and I'm sure I'll get him on at some point to talk about that. But I'd started a business, was training for a marathon. It was the greatest year of my life in terms of how happy I was. I remember just being extraordinarily happy all the time, just in a constantly good mood, even though it was peak lockdown. Yeah, my relationships were good. I was doing incredible at university. The first 3 years when I was taking drugs and alcohol, I was getting consistently around 65% as an average across the years, which is just enough to progress on to the next year. And my last year university, I averaged 90%. So the jump was just like massive, and I started to really participate in all of my classes. I remember doing the online classes, and 90% of the class would have their camera turned off and barely speak up. And I ended up basically leading, or not leading some of the sessions, but I tried to communicate and get involved in as many sessions as possible because I'd truly seen the value in that education, and in just being yourself. And I think the reason most people don't go sober is because they believe that the sobriety or not drinking will have them miss out on all these like amazing occasions. But that year off really taught me that you still go to the occasions that really mean something to you. One of your best friends' 21st, or someone's birthday, or something else. And you still go to these occasions. You go to the ones that you enjoy because the company's good and the experience is good. But you'll start to just fucking forget about the ones that only exist because people want to get fucked up together. Like, those ones don't interest me anymore. If people want to just go to the pub and drink pints and do that, it doesn't even remotely appeal to me anymore. And that year off really, really highlighted that. After that year, I decided to go back to drinking sometimes. So very, very infrequently, because I knew that I was leaving basically. And I wanted to enjoy in the old style of ways that last year I had with friends in the UK before I left. So I decided to drink for that last year, and I drank while I was travelling. And then I just noticed that the moods, like slight mood swings and just reduction in mood, increase in anxiety, and everything, it all just increased. And the one time that really hit me actually is I went to full moon party in Thailand, and the day after I went and got a space cake, which is, if anyone doesn't know what a fucking space cake is, it's like basically weed and a brownie. It's an edible, and I got one of them, and I decided that I would take it by myself. So I took this weed brownie, sat on the beach, and for me, weed never reacts well, so it's always an interesting occasion when I do it. And I was really high. I was tripping balls off this weed brownie, or not tripping balls, but it was just I was very, very high. And I started to have these really, really intense thoughts. And I wasn't scared. I wasn't anxious about them. I was able to actually reason with myself as to what thoughts were real and what thoughts were just like unnecessary. When I smoke weed or get high off edibles, I tend to think really horrible things about myself. I feel like I'm worthless. I feel as if I'm not doing enough. Like, I just feel really, really anxious about a lot of things. So yeah, I was able to look at some of those thoughts and discern the ones that actually had some reasoning behind them, and some of them that were just unnecessary. So the unnecessary ones I discarded, but a few really interesting ones that were somewhere on the stripped back version of my ego really came to the surface. So one of them was that first 3 months before I left to go travelling in March of 2022, I hadn't drank at all at home, so I'd done 3 months sober. And I told my friends, like, I'm going to go sober forever. And then when I went travelling, I started drinking again. And it hit me, like I'd said to one of my friends, Ross, I'd said to him, look, I'm not going to drink again until I become a millionaire. And then I'd broken that promise both to him and to myself. And that weed brownie really stripped that back, and I looked at that and I thought, that's not the person I want to be. I want to be a person of integrity that sticks by my word. And I really meant it when I said that I'm not going to drink again until I become a millionaire. Like, I did mean it, and I'd lived a lie by betraying that, and it made me really upset, but also was just like a total introduction to an honest version of myself, and it was a real turning point, because from that point on I decided I'm not going to drink again. So now I've been in Melbourne for roughly 7 weeks, and I think it's been 10 weeks, so 2.5 months when I last had a drink, and I intend on going sober for until I fulfill my original promise, both to myself and to Ross. And it's for more than just that business success. It's for more than just that pursuit of something as selfish as that, which I know it's a selfish pursuit. The pursuit of sobriety for me right now is an example of my own willpower to myself. It's a question of, can I do something that I'm proud of, and can I stick to something that I care about? And I believe that this dedication to sobriety will permeate into other parts of my life. It will dedicate into me practicing MMA more, which I do 4 or 5 times a week just now. It'll permeate into me developing greater relationships with my family and my friends. It will develop into me fulfilling promises that I make to other people. So yeah, there's lots of reasons I do it, and I've not fully came to grips with why, but I just know that it's something that I need to do just now, and that's a character development that I've been making recently. So yeah, that's me waffled on about sobriety for a long time. But yeah, that's the character side of that episode. So thank you for listening to that. And yeah, for episode 3, I'm going to have a conversation with my friend Dylan. My friend Dylan he's been working as an engineer / deckhand on the yachts out in the south of France. So these are privately chartered yachts out in the south of France, and he's been doing this for around a year now. I think a year and a half. So it's going to be a conversation with him and how that started his career, or how he got started in that career, what he thinks about it, what skills he had before, what he likes about it, what he doesn't like about it, and where he sees the future with it. And I also want to hear more about what coffee he's having, because he's known for having fucking shit coffee at home, and I tried to teach him. He's also a man that's very focused on doing well in life, and I'm interested in seeing what character developments he's made recently, and what he thinks about self-improvement in general. We had a conversation recently about sobriety and alcoholism and what it is for different people. So it's something we might delve into on that episode. And it'll be the first episode with a guest, which will hopefully start to make the routine of this podcast, where we have an interesting guest in a different field every week, and we discover why they went into it, and hopefully this can be of a lot of use for people who are in the very, very early stages of the career, that age group from 14 to 30, people that are thinking about going into career. They don't know what they like, they don't know what they don't like, just anyone. There's loads of people out there that are they just don't know in this day and age. So that's where I think it could be of some help. So yeah, next episode we'll be going over the developments I've made with the recipe and with everything else, and it'll also be with a conversation with my friend Dylan. So yes, stay tuned, and I'll keep you all updated.